Hello, brilliant jewelry community. This is tutorial number 6 for the almighty jewelry 3D settings assets. Today we're going to talk about halos, those very pretty little stones around a central gemstone for all your specific 3D jewelry designs in Blender. Azure, cushion, emerald, heart shape, the marquise, oval gems, the pear shape, the round halo, halo for square gems, and the trillion shape. And all these halos have two versions, wide or tight plate, for all the shapes of the gems. Let's learn how to customize them. So first, remember that for each shape of gem, the halos are built in size for their basket setting. So this is the basket setting of the Azure gem, and the halos are built to that size at the beginning. Now, very important, we need to have a look at the names of the parts making the halo to understand how to work with the halos. I created this asset with a practical logic, so each component of the halo can be changed and customized for any situation. So we have the gems. They're distributed on a path. The path is a curve. Then we have the prongs. The prongs have a mirror modifier because most distribution for halos are symmetrical. Then the plate. Here, this plate is the result of making the halo. That's why it's called meshed. For the booleans, because this plate, once that you turn it into a mesh, can properly receive the booleans from the cutters. These are the cutters for the placement of the gems. So to start customizing your halo, you need to forget the meshed result. So you can hide it, and you need to bring the external border, just one outside wall. Then we have the internal border, that's the other half of the plate and the inside wall. So the external border with the internal border with their profiles create the plate, and all these base elements, the external border profile, the internal border, and the internal border profile are curves. So we can go to edit mode and start tweaking the shape and size of these elements to customize the halo plate to anything we need. Let's make an example to see how it works in action. Let's unhide the basket with the central gem, so we have the central reference. Good, so I'm going to select the external border and the internal border. I'm going to make a copy, Shift D, Enter. Now let's make a Shift S, cursor to selected, and let's go to edit mode. Let's work from the 3D cursor. Select everything with A. So these are two curves, one from the external border and the other one from the internal border. And I'm going to scale here. I'm going to make a second halo, and I'm going to move it, grab on the Z-axis, a bit lower than the first one. Now here, check, we need to adapt the size of the corners. It means we need to move some vertices. So let's select the first corner and work from the median point. I'm going to go to the left to make contact, and I'm going to use a fixed amount. Here, round it up. Then I'm going to select the other corner, and now I'm going to move on the y-axis. Exactly the same amount. That's why I use easy plain numbers. Great. Now the corners are readapted to the new size. Exit edit mode. So this is a new plate for a second halo using the same profiles as the first plate. And obviously now we want to customize these profiles so they have a different, nicer shape for that second halo. So I'm going to select the profiles, the external border profile and the internal border profile. And I'm going to make a copy, Shift D, Enter. And first I'm going to move them, so grab so we can clearly see them. And this is my new external border. Let's go to the curve data, the geometry, and the object bevel is this new profile, the copy we've just made. Do the same for the internal border and the curve data, object bevel, the new internal profile. So clearly for now, they look the same. We need to go to edit mode. There, you can work on one profile at a time, or you can select both profiles and go to edit mode and work on both at the same time. So first, by example, I want them to be lower. So I can select the bottom vertices, maybe even scale them on the z-axis. And here I can tweak the height of my profiles. So if I want, I can select the first profile also and tweak them to something different. So the plate is not that high, somewhere here. That's a bit nicer. Then on the external border, maybe I want to adapt the design. So there, tweak the curve and the design as you like. This is a polycurve, so it's only straights. If you want, you can go to curve, spline type, and use a Bezier type of curve, because maybe you want a rounder design. So don't forget to go to V handle type, make it automatic. So it goes back to a Bezier type of handle, and you have rounder shapes. Now from here, do whatever you want with your own creativity to adapt the design of the plate. Exit edit mode. Good. So this is how we can adapt the plate to a new size and customize the design of the halos. Now we need to bring the gems, the prongs, and the cutters to the second halo. Let's have a look at the gems. So the gems are instances distributed on vertices, and we have a path, and the curve modifier on the gems distribution is using that path. So obviously this path is where the gems will be distributed. Now it's very important to open the gems distribution. There's the instance gem here inside, and it's hidden. So you must show it, and we're going to select the gems distribution, the small gem instance, and the path. So this is the selection, and we're going to copy this. I'm going to move it up so we can see the copy. You can rename the copy if you need. Now that I made a copy, I'm going to check that the path for the copy is the new path. That's correct. And also I'm going to check that my small gem, that's the instance, also got copied. But also, and very important, this is where I can change the size of the gems for the halo. So here I can scale this instance gem, and it's going to change the size of the gems of my new halo. So now I'm going to use 1mm gems like this, and I'm going to readapt the distribution of the gems to the new halo.
And to do that, I can do it from the top view, and I'm going to select the path and scale the path. We can see that starts to rearrange the small gems. So I'm going to come there to the border. Now I'm going to select the gems. Here we have the array modifier that sets the distance and the amount of gems around the halo on that specific path. And we have a mirror on the X and Y axis because the halo is symmetrical. So if I change the distance in the array, it changes the distance between the gems. Now I need more gems, so I'm going to bring the count up this until I reach the side. Now here it's important to understand that given a certain distance and a certain count, we're not necessarily going to match the axis of the halo. But first, anyway, I'm going to select the path and go to edit mode, because the corners and the distances and shape of the corner must be readapted to the new size for the new halo. So we have vertices that we can very precisely tweak. So by example, the vertex here at the center of the corner, I can move it and very precisely tweak the position of the gems to the new distance for the corner. Then here at the corner, there's a specific vertex that allows to correct the deformation at the corner. So we can have a very precise distribution. And now the gems are matching at the axis. So you can do that by tweaking the shape of the path in edit mode and correct the control points of the path in edit mode to readapt the distances between the gems. That can work it will not always work. Sometimes you will have to find a very specific distance on the x-axis
in the array modifier of the gems distribution and the proper count to perfectly match on the axis of the halo. But that's also very easy. Now my gems are way above the halo. So if I select the instance and move it on the z-axis, we can see the vertices of the distribution. Just as a side note, see the black points? These are the vertices for the distribution of the instance gems. And we can move the halo. But you shouldn't do it like that. You should select the gem distributions, the instance gems, and the path and move them all together on the z-axis or wherever you need to go. So now I'm going to move on the z-axis to the proper position of the new halo, and I'm going to adapt exactly like I explained in step 1. I'm going to readapt the border. So to do that, I'm going to select the profile of the new halo, go in edit mode, select all the control points, and move on the x-axis to match the new distance for the smaller 1 millimeter gems. Don't forget to check under. So by example here, what I'm going to do is select the inner edge, and I'm going to simply get rid of this useless border. That's a bit pressure for this design. Great. Now here, if needed, don't forget to precisely tweak the shape of the halo at the corners on the outside wall. Good. I explained how to customize the shape of the plate of the halo and the distribution of the gems. We need to prepare the cutters for the gems to cut their proper position inside the halo, and also adapt the position and size of the prongs for the new halo. So let me select the prongs of the first halo. Let's make a copy, Shift D. We can see we have a mirror, a remesh to avoid overlappings, very basic modifiers. And let's go to edit mode. So the prongs are meshes, and there's no magic trick of instances, path, curves, or whatever array to make the prongs. That's to ensure maximum flexibility and also simplicity, because in fact, there are not that many prongs that we need to create to complete the halo. So let me select whatever prong, Control I, erase the rest. Now my prong here, I can grab it, scale it to readapt for the smaller gems. Here, obviously, we need to go inside the new halo. So here you can tweak the height super precisely in the most practical way. Check that the prong is inside the metal. Good. Top view. Shift D on the y-axis. Very precise. Select the other prong. Shift D on the x-axis. Position and position. So, why am I not using curves to distribute the prongs? Because at the corner of the halos, there is always mathematical conflict for the proper distribution of the prongs. So I'm going to make a copy and solve that issue directly in edit mode by positioning my prongs by hand. This is super easy and this never fails. And this is the happiest way to make this process. So here we're already at the other side. Position the prongs, select them both, and now distribute on the y-axis. And one last time, exit edit mode. These are my new prongs for my smaller 1 millimeter gems of the new halo, and we're done with the prongs. Now let's search for the cutters of the first halo. Here they are, show them. So these are the cutters to cut the position of the gems, always very important. So we need to open here and show the instance of the cutters. So I'm going to select the placements and the instance. Have a look at the selection. But now we're going to learn a very important trick to make the new cutters a lot easier. So let's select the new gems with their instance, and let's make a copy of the new gems on the z-axis, Shift D, with their instance. Now I'm going to take the cutters and their instance and make a copy on the z-axis there so we can see all the copies. Now I can select the instance of the cutter. That's the one there at the center. I'm going to move it on the z-axis. I'm going to scale it and adapt it to the smaller gem. Here, adapt the placement already. And I'm going to select together the smaller gem that's on the inside. So here I have the instance of the cutter and the instance of the gem. Very important, the gem is in bright orange. That's the active object. So now I can do a Control J to join these meshes together, and the cutter is now part of the geometry of the smaller gem. That is an instance for the distribution, but we've made a copy, so it's not affecting the other gems in the halo. Now I can go in edit mode. So if you want to tweak the cutter in edit mode, why not? Maybe I want to make it a bit bigger and check the position on the z-axis a bit lower so it cuts a nice position for the gems. Let's do this in edit mode. And now I can reverse the selection to the gem and erase the gem. I don't want the gem inside the cutter. And now here I have replaced the geometry of the instance of the gem with the cutter. And the result is that I have all the cutters instead of all the gems for the new halo, and that's a lot easier and a lot faster. So now let's take the instance of the new cutter, the placement of the new cutters, and let's move them on the z-axis, and let's place the new cutters in their proper position for the second halo. Good. Okay, here I can hide the cutters of the first halo. We don't need that anymore on the screen. Now I have my new cutters. Let's select the borders of the new halo, inside and outside. Let's do a local view. So these are the new cutters for the smaller gems. But, and this is very important, these are instances. These are not real meshes. So we cannot really make booleans. Many operations won't work correctly because of the instances. So if you do Control A, there is a fantastic option called Make Instances Real. But beware, each instance is going to become one object. But that's okay because let's do it. We have all the cutters. Let's select one with the Shift key so it becomes the active object. And let's do a Control J. So now these can be called Halo number 2 meshed cutters. And this is the result of creating the meshes. And now let's make the boolean on the halo. So the halo inner wall, outside wall, these are curves. Let's make a copy of these curves. Let's convert them to mesh, and let's do Control J to join the meshes. So now this is the result. This is the halo number 2 meshed. Okay, so now this mesh, let's give it a remesh modifier, find a proper voxel size, and then add the boolean, difference, fast solver, and let's remove the cutters. This is the result. Check all around. This is really nice. We have small indents for the gems inside the borders. Now let's go back to general view. So here we have some things overlapping. You can hide what you don't need anymore. And now also a funny note, when you make instances become real, the instances become part of the original instance. So that's a bit crazy, and you should know that. So here, the way to solve that is that where the origin is, that's where the original instance is. Let's go to edit mode, deselect everything, select the real first instance, invert the selection, erase all the rest. See here, I kept only the original instance, and now this is one original instance again. I can hide it. Here inside the gem, remember that you might have some instances interfering at the middle. That's part of the cleaning process. And this is the result of the tutorial for customizing halos in the almighty 3D jewelry settings asset. This is obviously the more complex element to customize, but we can see that each element has specific steps. You can use some very practical tricks to get the job done a lot faster, and this completes this tutorial. Thanks for supporting my work, my channel. By becoming members of my channel, you'll get amazing 3D models and 3D scenes each month. Also, find my asset on Superhive Blender Market to create professional 3D jewelry in Blender and support the Blender Foundation. Be nice to the planet, be nice to animals. Take care and see you soon.